All right. We are back. Jack of all trades. Jack, it's getting exciting. We have football, NFL football, one day away. Tomorrow night, we got Houston. Tough game on the road at the Chiefs. What we want to do with this episode is pick up where we've been leaving off. We did the AFC West last episode, so feel free to go ahead and check that out. We're going to get into the AFC South, and we're going to go ahead and start with Houston since they're playing tomorrow night. So, Jack, we're looking at your input. We've been looking at your spreadsheet and your inputs. Then we take the model that you put together and compare it to what Vegas has, and then look for some discrepancies and maybe why there's discrepancies. But for Houston, we're gonna rerun them and come up with some data for us, right?
Yeah, I mean, so we're looking at Houston, big underdogs tomorrow night. So that's, your expectations as a Texans fans got to be a little bit guarded. We talked about them a little bit in the other episode, so I don't want to get too far down that same road, but of why, and of course they lost Hopkins. So their over under is 7.5. They're shaded a little bit over if you look in Vegas, but it's pretty much 7.5. Because if you want to take the under 7.5, you still got to give odds. And we look at this Sagarin model we talked about, which is it's a little bit regress and slight adjustments for some major offseason moves, but a lot of it's based on where they left off last year and then kind of regress that back. So we run the model, and what I'm looking for is anything that's far from, the model's far from Vegas, and then kind of why. But so if this is 7.37 on Sagarin, well, that's certainly not far. It does imply that the under is a decent bet when there aren't very many decent bets. And then, like I talked about in the last few episodes, like I also run kind of my own model numbers that are similar, and I have my own inputs on how the teams regress from last year and then major player adjustments. And if we run it off of that, which is, it comes out a little different than Sagarin does. It bumps up the Texans right about where the line is. And usually mine seem to be a little bit more close to Vegas than Sagarin. I don't think he did a lot of adjustments going in. I think a lot of his model will get better as the season goes on, as far as how it applies to a point spread. Mine, I'm taking into some other things. I'm taking, and apparently I'm looking at the same thing that the Vegas people are, because my model tends to lose on both sides, meaning that Vegas gets their edge. They're losing. So 7.65 is what mine spits out. And like I said, it's 7.5 with the lean towards the over. Well, if you lean 7.5 up a little bit, what is that? 7.6, 7.7, 7.65. Perfect. So I think, Deshaun Watson signed a big contract, and Texans fans are probably more optimistic than 7.5, but I don't know. Bill O'Brien's made a lot of questionable decisions, trades, and it's obviously that 7.5. I mean, God forbid Deshaun Watson misses some games, because he's kind of dragging the whole team, quite frankly. So I think that's fair. I think Houston's not a team I would kind of pick in the South.
Right. You have the Superman's going to have to carry the show. Deshaun Watson's going to have an MVP year for them, to really hit it up here. But we just wanted to touch back on them briefly, and then we can scoot over to who else do you have teed up here, Jack? Do you have?
I got the Colts.
Okay, Colt.
I think the Colts are everybody's darling nationally.
In the spreads in Vegas with Houston, Indianapolis, and help me out here.
Who they're playing this week?
Odds to win the division.
Oh yeah, odds. Yeah, the Colts are over 9 wins minus 160. That's pretty steep. I'm trying to see if there's a, odds to win division. There's a playoff special. I mean, the Colts are, minus 200 to make the playoffs, and that's kind of where I was getting at for everybody's what everybody's thinking about. Sorry.
Yeah, there's no. It really seems to be like the Colts are like a. I don't know where this all came from. I suppose Philip Rivers coming, and I don't know, but they a lot.
I mean, yeah. I think I personally felt that people had them rated a little too high at the end of last year. People were so positive on them, and then they traded for DeForest Buckner. They got Philip Rivers, so that they had a ton of salary cap, and they spent a lot of it. And so, I mean, I can see why positivity, but I always would guard against, I would guard against like making this assumption, that they're such a, like, I had the Colts coming out as like a 22, and comparing that to Tennessee's like a 24.3, and then I adjusted them way up because on my adjusted thing, because I'm kind of looking at point spreads, right? So I'm looking at week 1. They're 8-point favorites on the road against the Jags. So what the heck is that? So I had to. I wanted to kind of get in line with Vegas, but I would say when you're making an adjustment that's that big, and it's a defensive tackle and Philip Rivers at his age, I wouldn't dive in fully. And here's what I'll show you is like when you adjust it up and you run it. When I run this model, the Colts are going to kick out. Like I said, they're minus 160 on an over 9. And so they kick out at like a 9.38, and that's like a fair value. Like, and that's a really strong team, 9.38. But if I don't adjust, if I just use the numbers I had for them, which was about 22, I don't change anything else, but I keep the Colts exactly where I was, and I don't take into account their off-season changes. And I just regress them based off last year. Waiting. 7.78. That's a giant disparity. And I absolutely think they improved. I just wonder if Rivers is really worth that much, So let's say you split the difference with them and you say like 23.2, which is kind of where if I was going to like bet my life on it, I had to. Gun to my head. How about that? That's a good saying. Gun to my head. I'd rather split the difference than give them that full adjustment that Vegas seems to be giving them. And I can guarantee you this will make the over much more unattractive and the under, much more attractive. And that puts them at 8.5. And so I think that's more of a logical place to land on. Just it's not that they can't be 11. Everything can go right. It's none of this is like exclusionary. I'm just trying to find maybe the most middle ground of if things go right, if things go wrong. If everything goes wrong, every team in the league is going to be a 6-win team. Remember, I'm a Vikings fan, so I'm going to refer to the Vikings. But 2009, everything was great. Vikings, Favre, the whole shooting match. 12-4, almost went to the Super Bowl. All that good stuff. Great season. The next year, everything went wrong. The Favre's ankle wasn't healthy. The dome crashed in. It was just and they went to like 6-10. It was just like, and it was like 20. I think it was like 21 of 22 returning starters on that team. Like the whole team came back, but the health wasn't there. Sidney Rice, he's got a groin now instead of playing the whole year. Just so, everything goes wrong for any one of these teams, it's going to be a bad year, Kansas City included.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, if I'm looking for the most logical middle ground, I would say maybe people are a little bit over their skis on the Colts. It's just kind of a national, but you don't want to argue too hard with Vegas, so I'm not recommending with these wide odds to go out and put a bunch of money on the under. But at 9, 9 minus 160, like I said, that's like a 9.38. Seems a little rich.
Right. Well, the Colts, yeah, they were favored to win the division. You're getting plus 120 to take them to win the AFC South. If you go over to Tennessee, they performed well late in the year and went deep into the playoffs. Had a good run. They're second at plus 170 in the AFC South, according to all these different ones I'm looking at over here on different casinos. But what do you have on your analysis for these Tennessee Titans this year?
Tennessee Titans, I don't know. I'm a big fan. Now, one thing you got to take into account as well is they just signed Jadeveon Clowney, so that's just added benefit. It's like how much of a benefit, hard to say, right? So it's like according to Sagarin's model, I think he's got him. I think it'll spit out like a 9-ish, and then we'll run adjustments. So he's got Tennessee as an 8.93. You said they're second favorite to the Colts, who Vegas kind of had as a 9.38. So so here's over 8.5, but it's minus 135 to the overside, so you're shading it higher. So that lines up pretty well with 8.93. And then if I run Titans adjusted to see where kind of I put them at, according to mine, and I think this is one where I have the Colts adjusted higher, and we can do a little exercise. So then I have them as a 9.0, so 8.93 Segura, and I have them 9.0. But if I go to that middle ground with the Colts, it won't be that much. That's what people need to understand is that, having your opponent be a little bit worse is good for you, but how good, does it take them from a 9.0 to a 10? No, it's not going to do that. It's not going to come close to that. It takes them from a 9.0 to a 9.11 if the Colts are just a little bit lower. But you remember that same adjustment put the Colts at 8.5. So the adjustments that I'm really comfortable with, for me, would have Tennessee as a slight favorite over the Colts. But again, it's like I can see where Vegas has come from. The Colts spent a lot of money, but Tennessee added pretty good player in their own right. They had Clowney. Buckner's a better player than Clowney, most likely. The Rivers upgrade from Tyrod Taylor is probably where we're getting at, and I think that's a tough one with Rivers' age for me. Like a guy that old coming to a new team. Not sure what we're going to get out of that. It's like, are we going to get the exact same as last year at San Diego or with the LA Chargers? And Rivers wasn't killing it last year. He wasn't like a superstar. He's a declining player for sure. So will he continue to decline? Will he be rejuvenated? There's all that, Will that offensive line protect him so much better? There's a lot of uncertainty around the Colts. So I get it. So that's why I run, straight up last year, I get 7.78. I run Vegas runs a 9.38. And then you split the difference. That's a wide range of what I would call like extra uncertainty, right? Like some teams that aren't changing. When you're changing quarterback, that's the most important position in football. So, that's a pretty big thing. I'd say the same with, the